Well, hey, what's up?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I sure can.
Okay, is that good enough? Because my mic isn't working right now, so I just have to use my laptop microphone.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
My video is normally like on my stream. I'm streaming. Is that okay? Let me.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Should I just switch off my video?
Yeah, I can't really. There's not like an easy way for me to get it on stream, so it's not. It's you can leave it up if you want or not, but it's not. Nobody can see it at the moment.
Much love, fam.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you need to like see me when I'm talking, but I guess that's not necessary.
Sure. I mean, it's up to you. I don't care.
Okay.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. It's been a crazy like 2 days. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm just doing what I do.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying your content lately. I discovered you fairly recently, and I've been enjoying it.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, I like how a lot of the critiques you have, like the skeptic community, is like a lot of things I share. So, glad to hear there are more people speaking on that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what, I guess that's kind of what we're here to talk about today, or that's more what I was interested in talking about. I'm not sure if you had anything in particular.
No, I figured I would just ask you, I would just let you ask me questions and I would answer. Are we streaming right now, by the way?
Yeah, we are, yeah.
Okay.
I think I hear like a motorcycle on your laptop. Do you hear that?
No, I don't.
I don't know what it is. Is it like the fan on the laptop spinning or something?
I don't think so. How about now?
Yeah, I can still hear it.
Oh my god. Okay.
What, for your other microphone, what wasn't working on it? Or what kind of microphone is it?
It is it's just like a H4, but maybe I should just call you on my phone.
Oh, it just stopped?
Okay.
I'm guessing it's probably the internal laptop fan, and it's maybe gonna. I'll tell you if it turns on again. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's okay. It's not a huge deal, but so I guess. I don't even know where to begin.
What did you think of the video?
I mean, everything you said, I mostly agree with. I think there's not much that's disagreeable. I guess like my big problem with the skeptosphere and all of these people that are tangential to it is that it seems like people are very surface level in the way that they engage with things, like with very little critical thought, which is ironic given they're the skeptic community. But a good example of that, and there's a million examples, but I'll focus on the one that you kind of talk about in your video, is what is your responsibility in terms of how people interpret your messaging. And it seems like that's just something that most skeptic people just have no desire in the world whatsoever to deal with. Like they've never thought about it. They don't care about it. They don't know anything about it. Do you understand what I mean when I say that in terms of like how people interpret what you say? Yeah.
Yeah, they take a very like hardline theoretical kind of approach to politics, which doesn't really work. I mean, maybe if they were like in a university classroom, they could talk about things the way they do without really thinking much about how does this impact the broader world and how will this fall upon the ears of others. But I realized that, politics doesn't really work that way. And also like public speech doesn't work that way either. And so I actually think it's really dangerous because I think they're injecting the wrong framework into public discourse. In public discourse, you have to consider how things will be interpreted by others, even though those other people may not even interpret it the most charitably. You still have to consider that and be mindful of that. And just denying it is, in my opinion, very irresponsible.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying?
I agree with you 1,000,000,000% there. And at the very least, like if somebody were to say, I understand that I'm having this impact and I don't care, even if I disagree with them, I could at least respect that point of view. But what I absolutely don't respect is what you're saying, is that people that pretend like it doesn't happen. Like, that drives me crazy. A really good example of that has to do with the Trump stuff, right? So somebody will make a million videos making fun of feminists, making fun of SJWs, making fun of Democrats, making fun of Hillary, making fun of Bernie, and then you'll say something to them like, hey, like, you said you're a liberal, right? Like, that's kind of weird that all you do is spend all your time criticizing. And they'll be like, I don't support Trump. I never said that anywhere. I don't support Trump. It's like, okay, well, you understand that you could like build like an entire fan base of like hardcore right-wing people because of the type of content you put out, right? It's like, well, that's not my fault if they interpret my message that way. That's not my fault if people see it that way. And it's like, okay, dude,
Well, in the most strict sense of things, of course, they can be a leftist and make a whole channel just criticizing the critics of Trump. Like, in the very strict sense, I mean, they're not saying anything that's, against their leftist principles per se by criticizing critics of Trump or making fun of them. But, like, once again, that is so technical that it just ignores a whole body of meaning that is translated to whatever audience. So it says something when you're only ever criticizing or making fun of the critics of Trump, rather than ever like criticizing Trump. There's subtext there, and so like I don't like using this term, but there's almost like an what's the word? Monomaniacal technical interpretation of everything. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, I technically didn't like say anything anti-left.
I'm not familiar with the word, but I 100% know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it's exactly what I said before, where people will like spend all of their time criticizing like one point of view, and then you'll be like, okay, well, it kind of seems like they don't believe in anything implicit. Like, it sounds like you're implicitly supporting the other side. Show me a video where I made it, where I said I absolutely love Donald Trump. I bet you can't show me that video. It's like, okay, well, but you don't have to put that video out to have everybody think that that's what you feel, you know? Like really when we're in the call with Roaming Millennial and Lauren Southern, and and Nick Fuentes is talking about how he would like electroshock therapy, all trans people, and it's like, okay, now you might not think that, but when you don't say anything against it, and when he goes even further to say that like, oh, women belong at home, women would be women just wouldn't get sexually assaulted in the workplace if they didn't go to the workplace. When you sit there silently about it, it kind of gives it seems like you have like this implicit approval of it. But then they'll always say like, well, like Roaming Millennial, well, I didn't actually come out and support anything that Nick said in that conversation. It's like, okay. Well then
after that stream, like critics of how she acted on that stream told her that, talked about like how he was basically telling me to get electroshock therapy. And then she was like retweeting those criticisms and being like, come on, guys, he never said electroshock therapy. Like, what do you think that comes off as? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then I had a fucking argument with Nick Fuentes just the other day, and he retweeted me and basically said, because he talked about how Richard Spencer should not speak so lightly or so easily or so recklessly about, child pornography and stuff, and think about the impact that has. And I retweeted him and said, well, maybe you shouldn't so recklessly fuck around about the idea of putting trans women through conversion therapy. And he retweeted me and told me, like, that's not me being reckless, that's my official policy position.
Yeah.
But he's just trolling, right? He's just fucking trolling. I eventually deleted my tweets of him because his disgusting followers started like flooding my mentions and stuff, and I was like, okay, this was a bad idea. Never mind.
The Fuentes is legitimately and I'm pretty sure Allsup are legitimately like white nationalists. Are you aware of that?
Yes, they're fascists.
Okay, yeah, like full on. Yeah, like full on.
They're full on.
Yeah,
they're full on. Yeah.
It's hard to pick out who isn't these days because some people dog whistle it so hard it makes it hard to keep track. But they're full on, like, admittedly of it. In terms of what you're talking about there, like, there's this like when Romy Molina was like, well, he didn't actually say that. And this is one of the things that drives me the craziest when you talk about things like economics or social issues. You are talking about incredibly complicated, nuanced topics, and they want to remove like all of the nuance from everything and try to boil it down to these really easy yes or no questions. I remember when I was talking to Sargon about, like the plight of black people in the United States, and Sargon's entire solution to the black, problems in the U.S. was literally like, they just need to get married and the family will fix all of their problems. And like, I'm trying to explain to him like, okay, well, marriage is usually something that happens after you're somewhat successful. There are precursors to getting married. And he's like, okay, show me the law that keeps them from getting married. And it's like, nothing works that way. Like, nothing is ever going to be that simple. And you run into the same things with women as well, right? Where people will say things like women don't experience discrimination today. Show me one law that says a woman can't go to college or something or get a job or something. It's like, dude, like it doesn't work that way.
I know.
And it's like so frustrating because how can somebody be so stupid? Like, it's the same thing with racism or discrimination. Like, okay, like black people, there is no racism against black people in the United States today. Really? How can you say that? Show me the KKK people like hanging black people off of trees. Oh, well, I guess you got me. Yeah.
But I'm talking to you, and like to a great extent, that's what I kind of was for a long time. But then I saw like the rise of like actual like racists and anti-Semites, and also like more like personally regarding my work, I saw like actual transphobic people. Under the guise of like the anti-SJW community and the skeptic community, and moreover, I saw the skeptic people making excuses for them like they still do.
Yeah.
And then I realized what the fuck is going on. And then I learned more about like, I became more sensitive to like the subtleties, the implicit stuff. Because, like, I think, as I said in my video, like I'm kind of part of like this generation of like people who are politically minded, who are overreacting to, I guess, like a very PC culture where everything can be interpreted as racist or bigoted, which is also obviously not good. There's obviously the extreme on the left as well, but it's so overcorrecting that now we throw the idea away of like subtext and implicit and like, and the more subtle interpretations of things that are just as, if not more important ways of in which meaning is conveyed. And I think a lot of these people they're actually communicating a message, an unintended message that they don't intend to, and it's not a message that they actually stand by, I don't think. But they're just too naive and narrow-minded, I guess, to really see that. I don't know.
Yeah,
it seems to be a lack of emotional intelligence. Sometimes I feel like.
And that's probably the thing that hurts me the most, is that like when I look at, are you familiar with like with Sargon's work?
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. So like Sargon is somebody that I hate Sargon and I hate all of his work, but I really don't think that Sargon is racist, and I don't think he hates women. I really don't believe that. I don't think, like, deep in his core, I don't think he believes that. But the problem is that his messaging is so on point that it would be the exact same coming from somebody that actually did, like, hate minorities. When in terms of when he gets like crazy, like Islamophobic, crazy anti-immigration, crazy pro-Le Pen, crazy pro-Brexit, like his positions, his applied positions become like indistinguishable from somebody that is like filled with extreme hatred, and it becomes really difficult. I always say that like an example I give is like if I had 10 racist people in the room, I would rather deal with 10 racist people than with 3 racist people and then 7 quote-unquote centrists that are kind of like making excuses for him, because it becomes like really hard to call out somebody for being racist when you've got people that are constantly making excuses for their behavior. And that's something that I've noticed that you kind of mentioned earlier, is that people are like Fuentes talking about Spencer, like, I think you should be really careful about your position on child pornography, blah, blah, blah. Like, people are very charitable, especially the skeptics, are insanely charitable towards people that they are like politically aligned with. But if it's somebody that they're against, could you imagine if like a left-leaning person had made Spencer's argument? I'm not trying to be too self-serving here, but like if a left-leaning person had made like an argument similar to Spencer's, they would be jumping all over them about how this guy loves child porn, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But because it's somebody that they politically align with to some extent, they're going to make tons of excuses for why what they said is okay, and why, yeah.
Isn't that kind of disturbing that so-called centrists, in effect, by their actions, politically align themselves with the alt-right? they're so super critical and uncharitable. They will pick the worst example of an SJW.
Yeah.
But then they're like the most utter charitable towards the alt-right. So what does that tell me? That you're aligning yourself with the alt-right, and that's disturbing that in today's day and age, what we call centrists, at least on YouTube, are aligning themselves with fascists.
Yeah, and you saw Styx recently come out and say the alt-left is scarier than the alt-right, so I'm going to align myself with the alt-right. Did you see these tweaks by Styx? I think he made a video about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was I thought he did all right in his debate with Spencer.
Yeah.
But I was a little bit I don't know, I wasn't too sure of him. Something didn't seem right. And then I saw those tweets and I was like, okay.
Yeah. That I don't know about that guy. I don't know
either, actually.
What?
I'll have to. I don't really know Styx either. I subscribed to his channel just last week, and then I unsubscribed because he was making too much content with really uninteresting titles. So
yeah. One of the things that I thought was so fucking hilarious. You remember? You've seen the Mouthy Buddha videos on the Nazi Germany shit or whatever.
Man, Mouthy Buddha is another guy that I can't really quite sum up.
Yeah, so this was hilarious to me, is that he presents the most sympathetic view possible to Hitler and Nazi Germany. The most possible, the highest degree of sympathy you could ever show for Hitler. Videos of him being nice to kids and giving all the reasons why the Jewish question is valid and, all this stuff. And then when people call him out on it, people are like, hey, this is kind of comes off as literally Nazi propaganda, my dude. And everybody's and then even Sargon. I remember this because they'd probably never heard this phrase until one person said it. They're like, oh, well, we're just steel manning the argument. We're just making their argument as strong as possible. We're just steel manning the argument. It's that's really interesting. So are you telling me then that you believe in steel manning arguments? If I go onto your YouTube channel and I look at some feminist critique, are you engaging with actual feminism in terms of in an academic sense? Are you engaging with feminist literature, with feminist speakers, and actual hard to deal with feminist problems? Or are you literally just copy pasting stupid quotes from fucking Tumblr and Twitter, or blue-haired women screaming in a YouTube video, and you're saying that represents all of feminism? Why is it that the only argument you're interested in steel manning is literal Nazism, but you won't steel man feminism, or steel man anything related to the LGBT community, or steel man anything related to liberal politics? I
know. Oh my God, Destiny, you are speaking the truth right now. But the thing with Mouthy Buddha is I had a really hard time signing him up. He actually DM'd me after I posted my video, and he said he actually really appreciated the video that I made. So I'm having a hard time summing him up in terms of where he is. But I do agree with you that his videos on the alt-right was a red flag for me. But yeah, so that's the thing is the left, often I find people on the left, they often have a bit more I guess emotional maturity, or they're more sensitive to the subtle messaging and the subtext of what people are saying. And so they often would call people racist or misogynistic or whatever, and it comes across as they have no evidence because nobody actually directly said anything sexist. But then, in my experience, they were right about a lot of these people. Do you know what I mean? And so I found that the left, they're kind of not that... I just realized they're much better at summing up the character of people than the right. And they're not always right, but I just realized they're more right than I thought they were about the character of people.
Yeah, their messaging is just really fucking aggressive sometimes, which hurts a lot.
I agree.
One thing that I criticize the left, or I guess progressive politics a lot for, is that we need more words to describe things. So for instance, and this sounds really bad, right? Depending on how you clip this out of context, right? But 20 years ago, if somebody said that they were raped, that's something that conveys an immediate meaning to me of a horrible, despicable act that is just absolutely disgusting. And, I immediately know what somebody's talking about when they say that. Nowadays, if somebody says rape or sexual assault, well, now I need a lot more information to decide, how outraged I'm supposed to be. When you said rape, do you mean a guy, literally fucking, spiked your drink, took advantage of you? Or do you mean you you had sex with a guy and you were both a little bit tipsy and maybe you didn't really want to do it and you kind of think he took, like, there's like so many shades of gray, but we still use like the worst word possible to call the person. And I feel like it hurts the overall messaging there because you lose a lot of the nuance, ironically enough.
It does.
Yeah. Same thing with things like racist, or homophobic, somebody might, there might be a gamer person that says faggot a lot because it's just, they say it and it's part of their culture, but they don't actually hate gay people. So to just come out and call this person homophobic or to say everybody that says this word is homophobic or transphobic, well, probably not. I mean, like, they engage in activities that can further transphobia, or they engage in activities that can implicitly support homophobia, but to just call the person, the worst word you can think of, a racist, a rapist, a homophobe, like, it shuts down the conversation immediately because in their mind, they're being called like the worst thing possible. So why would they even want to engage in conversation?
Yeah. So I guess I get what you're saying. Though definitely, I don't want to call people transphobic that aren't transphobic, but at the same time, I've found that nothing is really transphobic in the minds of many people beyond maybe like, assaulting a trans woman while calling her tranny. That's like maybe transphobic. But other than that, like, they always get angry whenever I use the term transphobic because it's almost like they just don't want to admit that there might be some either like bigoted beliefs or beliefs that have been informed by bigoted beliefs within them, right? Like, it's just they get so angry, and some things are just kind of transphobic in my mind, and it's like, to what point do I guess capitulate to them and use different language? Because I feel like I could use a different word, and then they would just be like, well, that's just another way of calling me transphobic. Do you know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. There are certain tricks. It's really funny. This has been one of the biggest reasons why I've enjoyed getting into these debates, is because people on the right are just as easy, if not easier, to trigger than people on the left. There are certain words where if you say them, you just trigger the fuck out of them. Another really good one, if you want to trigger the fuck out of anybody on the right, is if you use the word problematic, they instantly like go fucking ape shit. Like, if you say shit like that. I think that...
I guess... Continue, sorry.
I was going to say, I think that one of the issues with like trans-related stuff is that so there's like, they're not really even the skeptics. I call them, it's the anti-SJW community. That's really what they are. They built their whole livelihood around shitting on SJWs. People like Thunderfoot, people like Sargon, people like Armored Skeptic, right? It's just shitting on SJWs. And when I say SJWs, I just mean like the most extreme, like screaming blue-haired, purple-haired person that you can find in a YouTube video. I find that a lot of these people, a lot of their critiques centered around a lot of this like LGBT related stuff or a lot of SJW stuff. I think that there are a lot of these people that legitimately don't think that transgender people even exist. Like, I think a lot of people still believe that this is just something that kind of LGBTs have, and we just kind of accept it because we want to be progressive, but they're not aware that there's like a body of literature that exists to kind of like explore these issues. That these are like real things. These are real scientific things, They
are. And, no, I agree. And, I just, in me criticizing the kind of... Hold on.
I'm sorry. Oh, my God. Give me 1 second. Hold on. My kid just ran down here. Hold on 1 second.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. His coat was stuck. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So what I also noticed is simply me speaking and criticizing the kind of far-left trans activists. Simply speaking and criticizing them, and maybe not being clear enough on my position that they don't represent all trans people, or that like this doesn't mean that I don't believe trans people are valid. It doesn't mean I think being trans is a mental illness. Nonetheless, simply speaking about that in that way garnered me an audience with a really significant portion of like people who don't like trans people all that much. Or people who just watch my content that just don't like trans people all that much. And I find my views often completely mistaken by my audience. So, for example, the whole thing with non-binary people, right? The thing is, I have criticized non-binary individuals in the past, individuals who are non-binary.
Yeah.
And I have expressed skepticism of some people who call themselves non-binary. And I've also been honest about the fact that I had a hard time really fitting non-binary identities into my understanding and framework of gender. But that doesn't mean I ever thought that all non-binary people are just bullshitting and are not authentic with who they are and what they say. Because, like, I have friends who are non-binary. They experience gender dysphoria. They transition to a point that they're comfortable. They experience discrimination on the basis of them being trans. They go through difficult times trying to figure out their identity, basically like any other trans person. And like, I never questioned that what they experience as their gender is legitimate. But just the way in which I spoke about non-binary people gave people the impression that I thought all non-binary people were bullshit. And I realized that I could have been way more like careful and thoughtful with how I spoke about non-binary people. And because I wasn't as careful as I could have been, I ended up adding, I think, to a climate that is just really hostile towards anybody who has identifies themselves as non-binary. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, basically, like and this is the problem, is that you have to be aware that everything that you say will be interpreted in some context. And it's like, if you want to have a platform and speak to people publicly, you have to do your homework to some extent and make sure that you are aware of all of the ways that your message can be interpreted. Otherwise, you'll find, like, in a couple months that you've built a fan base of people that you absolutely don't agree with on anything, because they hooked on to, like, a certain message that you gave, but they interpreted it in, like, a totally different way, or rather they ran with it in a way that you're not familiar with, or I'm sorry, that you wouldn't support. Let me give, like, a real example. Are you familiar with Twitch TV, the platform that I stream on, video games, all that?
I know of it, but I have no idea how to navigate it or really too much about what's going on there. So
do you know anything
that's about as much.
Do you know anything about Gamergate?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so There is an issue that Twitch is having right now where there's kind of a big gray spot in the rules, and it has to do with women that stream that are kind of sexually suggestive, that are incredibly sexually suggestive with the way that they stream. And there's a lot of people that aren't happy with this for valid reasons and invalid reasons. So I am aware of all the sides in this debate, and when I speak, I'm of the mindset that highly sexual content probably shouldn't be on Twitch. But I have to be very careful every time I speak, because if I'm not careful, what happens is, like, I might make a tweet saying something like, I really don't think that, like, if I make a tweet saying something like, I really don't think that highly sexual content belongs on Twitch in this way. It just doesn't seem right to me. I'll have a bunch of people tweeting, alongside me, saying, like, yeah, get these fucking sluts off of fucking Twitch, these fucking whores with their horrible clothes, blah, blah. And it's like, whoa, holy shit, dude, like, this is not exactly what I meant. Like, people will take it as far as, like, any girl that wears a low-cut top needs to never stream on this platform because she's a fucking whore. And it's like, damn, like, you're going way farther than what I meant, like. That happens with, like, anything where, like, during the presidential elections, I had to be very careful in terms of, like, I really am not a Hillary fan. And if you watch my content for any amount of time, you know that I didn't like Hillary. Now, I hated Trump, and I vote for Hillary over Trump in a microsecond. However, I was not a Hillary fan, and I was always careful when speaking, about the political election issues, that if anybody heard me, talking about why Trump is horrible, that they would also know that I don't necessarily support Hillary either, because I don't want to build a fan base of people that think I'm a massive Hillary supporter just because I've never said anything bad about her,
Yeah. Well, shouldn't this, like, now come to think of it, like, this is just being a mature person, and like, kind of how you describe how you need to be careful about, like, what you say to basically everyone to hear.
Yeah.
Like, that's just kind of being a mature, responsible,
intelligent
adult, intelligent person. And then I look at people like, of course, I'm not particularly judgmental of people as long, like, who made the same mistakes and make the same mistakes that I did, I mean, that would be very hypocritical of me. But I mean, like, people like Sargon of Akkad, who's like in his 30s, who he still doesn't get that.
Yeah,
it baffles me. It really baffles me.
And not to celebrate or sound smug about it, but like, Jesus Christ, when Lauren Southern and Tara McCarthy had that huge rife that occurred between them and the fascist people or whatever, the alt-right or whatever, where they started to realize that, holy shit, a lot of my audience actually fucking hates women. I mean, were you really that surprised? You know, like, Lauren, you make videos all day shitting on women for not getting married and having white, beautiful babies, and here you are in your 20s, you've had plenty of time to do it, and you haven't yet. Like, what did you expect your audience to do? I think she went and cleared some of those comments, but holy shit, I remember in that Lauren Southern video where she explained why she didn't, the top comment was something like, this is just another blonde whore that wants to ride the multicultural cock carousel before she hops off and settles down with a beta white man or some shit. Like, Jesus, fuck. But it's not really surprising. Like, it's what I would expect to read from people, you know, in that political part of the world.
But this is a really big problem, especially like on YouTube. The people who kind of do politics right now and make political commentary nowadays, they're all very young. Like, these right-wingers, these conservatarians, these conservatives, these alt-right people, they're all like stupidly young comparatively. They have very little life experience, and I'm literally including myself in this.
Sure.
I actually feel like I have so much to learn. That's why I'm always open to learning, and I have changed my position on a lot of things, because there's just no way that we can, like, people our age can really fully understand the things that we're saying and the effect that they have. Like, I don't think someone like Andy Worski really understands what he's doing when he, like, has a nice chit-chat. Or Roaming Millennial. I don't really think she really understands what she's doing when she has a nice chit-chat with, like...
Richard Spencer.
Propagandist. Like,
the whole point of this is what irritates me so much, and I see Bunty do this. I love Bunty so far. I haven't had my falling out with him yet. I thought Andy was okay. I love Bunty so far. And then, like, Roaming Millennial is that, like, if you look at fascist messaging, the whole point of how they do their stuff is they understand. They're very intelligent. They understand that they can't run around in KKK outfits with fucking tiki torches because it looks bad. It looks stupid. The whole point of their messaging is you need to present somebody that looks calm, that's well groomed, that looks nice, that can speak in a calm, polite manner, that is endearing, that always speaks in positives. You know, like, I don't want to remove black people from the United States. I just want to create a space for white people, right? Their messaging is very on point. And then you see people ironically enough, in the skeptic community fall hook, line, and sinker for this messaging. You know, like, oh, well, you know, Richard Spencer might be bad, but he's a really nice person to talk to. So I'll sit here and have him on my YouTube channel and talk for an hour about creating a white ethno-state while being cheery and kind of laughing along with them. That's the whole point of their propaganda. That's the whole point of their rhetoric. That's how they do their messaging. Like,
Well, that's exactly the thing. Like, when somebody's opinion, like a fascist, when their opinion is so far from the Overton window, they have a vested interest to make their views seem closer to the Overton window than it actually is. Because that's how they recruit.
Yeah,
right?
it's that. There's a specific name for that. Actually, it's called a Mott and Bailey. So the idea is, let's say that I believe that women shouldn't be allowed in the workplace. I just don't want them at all. I wouldn't actually come out and argue that women don't want to be in the workplace. I would argue that something like women and men are biologically different. And as long as I get you to concede to that, I like kind of drop the argument, and then we just kind of like go from there. Or maybe in the future I'll bring it up again. But like, they never actually argue like the end result of what they want. You're always posturing for something very far removed from it to kind of get you on the fence or to get you closer and closer to it. This is my big problem with the race realist video that Mouthy Buddha did with JF, is that whole video was a big Mott and Bailey. They'll say things where it's like, there are very observable differences between the races. You can see different colors of skin. It's like, well, okay, yeah. I guess that I'm a race realist, sure, but it's like, well, that's not really what they're arguing. They're arguing for differences in fucking IQ and like intrinsic intelligence. It's way different.
I know, it's pretty ridiculous. I guess that's a really big thing. I think that a lot of these kids are kind of unwise in many ways, and that's a bit dangerous. I feel like naive people, unwise people, who, make political commentary and who are, in some cases, some of the biggest names online. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a dangerous thing. That's why now I'm trying to be better. I don't want to create undue suffering and damage where it need not be. So yeah, I think we definitely agree on that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was, just to go back to the whole idea of the left should take on different words for like someone who maybe says things that enables like racism versus someone who actually is spouting racist views, right? I guess my thing with that is, right, so let's take like Donald Trump, for example.
Oh, God, yeah.
Well, I actually don't truly know if in his heart he harbors racism, right?
Donald Trump is somebody that I would describe as, the way that I'd call it is I call it old person racist. So like my grandma used to call black people colored, and she would say they'd have like a black person smell, but I don't think she hated black people. She was like, I would just call it like old person racist, if that makes sense. Donald Trump is probably somewhat similar to that. It would be my guess. He's not like, I don't think Donald Trump is like a full-on like ethno-state race realist. He probably just holds some pretty dumb opinions that a lot of old people tend to hold.
Well, I guess at the end of the day, it's like whether you want to call him racist or old people racist, whatever it is that he kind of harbors in his heart and in his mind about other races, it's almost inconsequential if what is there when you go look on the inside of him, when what he's doing is emboldening, enabling, normalizing and excusing racists. That's the much more important question to be asking. Rather than, is Donald Trump a racist? We should be asking, is Donald Trump doing racism?
Or empowering racists. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This is why Donald Trump, and if you talk to people on the far right, they'll tell you that Donald Trump is the perfect candidate because he pushes a perfectly racist platform without probably being racist, so you can't really attack him as racist, right? But he's doing everything that like a big racist would like, we're looking at, we're reducing immigration as much as we can from Muslim countries, we're building a wall along the southern border, we're pardoning people like Sheriff Arpaio, we're saying that, federal judges that are of Mexican descent, even if they're Americans, probably can't rule on some case. Like, he's doing everything you would want, like, an actual racist to do, but he's not actually racist. So it's like the best defense in the world. So when I argue with these people, they'll say things like, these incredibly disingenuous arguments. They'll say things like, oh, I'm sorry, Destiny, I didn't know that Mexican was a race. Haha, gotcha. Oh, Destiny, Muslim isn't a race. You can't be racist against Muslims and Mexicans. And it's like, okay, dude, but come on, like, really, are you this is the argument that you're going to put forth? Like, when these people will mix up these terms all the time, right? Because these people will call Hispanics in the United States Mexican all the time when they mean to say Hispanic, but I find that that's a really easy like messaging thing to pick up on for people that have inherent racist views. Is oftentimes they will use interchangeably immigrant, illegal immigrant, and refugee. They'll use those three words like all interchangeably. Fuentes did it a lot in our discussion.
Because they kind of see them as all the same.
Yeah, brown people.
And he never says brown people. He never says like I guess foreigners, or he never says a word that actually confirms 100% that it's really just about brown people. But all of those things added up, if you just take your time to listen, it's obviously his point of view. So in the case of like, let's say like transphobic, when a leftist calls a conservative or someone who's kind of like not sympathetic to trans people, if a leftist tells them, you're being transphobic, that often doesn't mean like you harbor transphobia in your heart, but it can often mean you're propagating transphobic beliefs, or you're enabling or excusing or normalizing transphobic ideas or transphobic beliefs. And in my opinion, the fact that conservatives would rather get angry about the fact that they have interpreted what a leftist said as they harbor transphobia in their heart when they don't think they truly hate trans people, I feel like they're focusing on the wrong question. They should be really looking at the question of, am I propagating transphobia, even though I don't harbor like those beliefs.
Well, so I would disagree with this because we have to be consistent, right? And this is why I'm very critical of the left for doing it, is that it's not fair that we can hold the right accountable for how their messages are taken, and then on the left be able to say whatever we want and then say, well, it's up to them to interpret it correctly. This is why...
I agree. It's just like... No, I 100% agree. And I actually agree with you that we need better terms.
Yeah.
But... Yeah, I guess it's just...
There are people that, like, even if you break it down, though, they'll never acknowledge what you're saying, but...
Well, that's the thing. That's what I kind of realized. Even if I, like, break it down, it doesn't really get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I kind of tried to, like, say, well, rather than telling someone they're transphobic, like, okay, well, you're kind of saying transphobic things rather than you are transphobic, or you're putting forward or propagating transphobic ideas, or this is how this idea that you are, this opinion that you're holding, this is how this kind of leads to more transphobic attitudes. And then I thought, like, maybe words like trans antagonistic. I don't know. It's hard. It's like, you know, sometimes I feel like I have to tiptoe around the obvious.
Yeah, because you'll trigger the fuck out of them if you say the wrong thing. They get insanely easily triggered. You have to be really careful in these conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I just realized that for the longest time I was excusing kind of bad behavior. Like, I was even kind of an apologist for Trump in the beginning. You know, like in the beginning of his... Yeah. For like the election and everything, I was like one of the shitlords, right?
Sure.
And I would constantly be like, oh, well, you have no proof that he's actually racist. He didn't say all Mexican immigrants. He just said that the illegal ones, some of them are racist. You know, I was one of those shitheads, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like I was constantly like asking myself the wrong question of, is Trump racist? Rather than, is Trump propagating or emboldening or racism?
Yeah. So
I do think that conservatives should, or at least people center-right, should reconsider, like, which one is more important, I guess.
Yeah,
but
this
at
is...
the same time, I think that, I totally think that that the left, we need to, like, be more articulate. See, this is the thing. I found that I agree with the left on a lot of things. And over time, I've realized that I do, especially on like social issues and especially on LGBT issues. But what I realized, the biggest problem with the left is that they are really not that great at, well, they're becoming better, but for a long time, they were not very great at articulating their ideas.
Yeah, one of the problems is that the messaging is just it's the problem is that, like, if you want to deal, no, I'm sorry, not necessarily the messaging, but like the ideas are so much more difficult to get across when you live in a reality based world. So, for instance, if we want to talk about say empowering a minority in the United States, this is a highly multifaceted problem. We're talking, what neighborhoods do they live in? Then we're talking, what are their schools like? How does the funding work for the schools? Is it fair that property taxes from poor neighborhoods will fund poor schools? Does this have an impact later in life in terms of what colleges they get to? Are there no role models in society because none of them can get anywhere? Do they not have role models in entertainment or media that's propagated? You know, there's like a million different ways. How is the family structure, the culture? How is the culture affected by mainstream culture? There's like a million questions to ask. So if you're a leftist, or I'm sorry, I should say a left-leaning person, and you want to talk about, like, okay, well, let's talk about problems that minorities experience. If the other person isn't like on your level, you know, like if not willing to engage in a critical way with these questions, you're going to lose them like immediately. Whereas if you're a person on the right, all you have to say is, well, everybody can make better choices. People need to just make the best choice, and people need to make choices in order to make the right choice so that they can make better choices. And it's like, oh, well, damn, that dude's right. Like, I can make better choices. Like, yeah, that guy's totally 100% correct. And it's like, well, how do you counter that type of messaging when they're completely fucking delusional, but the message sells so much easier?
Yeah, there's definitely truth to that. Yeah, I guess what I meant by, you know, that the left could be more articulate is, I guess, pretty much what you said as well. Like you said, they should maybe have more words to describe different levels and different degrees of different things. And I think that would help them better articulate their ideas. And in effect, the messaging would get better. a lot better as well.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that.
The lack of like critical thinking from some of the skeptic people like really, really bothers me. I don't know. I think you're friends with some people that I'm not very friendly with, but so I'll give an example for like with Shoe on Head. I don't think that it is possible for anybody to think that Trump was going to be LGBT friendly when he nominates Pence to be his vice presidential running mate. I don't think you can have an ounce of critical thinking in your body to actually think, like, or you're not being honest with something. Pence is one of the most anti-LGBT people, like, in the United States. He's insanely anti-LGBT. So when Trump came out with his military trans ban that he tried to enact via fucking Twitter, when he came out with that, you know, I remember Shoe on Head made this video where it's like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I had no idea. Like, oh no, nobody could have seen this coming. It's like, really? Like, really? Nobody had any idea that Trump might maybe not be the greatest, like, ally to LGBT people? The guy that nominated Pence? Really? Nobody did? Like, because he waved a flag once? Like, I don't know.
I know. I agree. I agree with you in many ways. And like, the thing is, like, just like a year ago, or maybe even less, I was at that same space. I was like, well, from what I can tell, it looks like Trump just doesn't care about, like, either way. He's kind of neutral on LGBT issues. So, like, I was there as well. But I'm definitely a lot more anti-Trump now than I was. Because I saw it play out, right? And it's maybe a shame, and it speaks to the fact that, like, maybe I still have a lot to learn. But I had to see it play out to really understand it fully.
Yeah, I understand. I used to be a hardcore right-leaning dude, even in my early streaming career. So, I mean, like, I've changed my political views pretty significantly over the past, like, 5 years.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's where I'm at with that.
Sure.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Like,
no, I don't know. That's basically just my main gripe that is kind of related. Is that, like, I find that people who are in the skeptosphere are just very uninformed or very immature, very unnuanced with how they view platforms, and that this lack of nuance or this lack of understanding leads down so many stupid roads where they won't acknowledge that, like, okay, well, maybe I'm implicitly supporting Nazism when I bring on, like, 4 people to talk about Nazism and I don't really say anything to, you know, counter any of their points of view. Like, that just that general trend of, like, being really dumb and really really naive just kind of bothers me.
Totally agreed. I try to still have some sympathy and patience, because I was there not too long ago, obviously.
Yeah.
And to a great extent, obviously, I see where they're coming from because I was there, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll have to try and think of how to convince them.
Yeah, you know? Good luck. The partisan hackery is insane. Like, people will look at anything from the opposition. Like, you've got people saying things like CNN is fake news, and then they'll throw you a link to, like, Breitbart or the Daily Caller about, like, a global warming article. It's like, dude, are you fucking delusional? Or people that support, like, I don't know how much you've looked into this since you're kind of new on this side of the political stuff. Like, Project Veritas, everything they do reeks of bullshit. Like, they've done all these...
I know that.
Yeah. Like, if you look into any of the things that they've blown the cover off of, every single time multiple independent investigations are, you know, conducted, they never, ever verify any of the Project Veritas claims. But you get people that do this stuff. Blair White engaged in some of this a while ago, and I was actually hypercritical of her because she made a video and it looked like she told a couple lies where she said she was just randomly going to go downtown in Hollywood or whatever and ends up getting beaten up and somebody throwing coffee on her. And I'm not one to say, like, oh, like, this looks fake, but, like, that was some highly edited footage. Why wouldn't you just release the unedited footage of that? Like, why not do it to, like, assuage, like, to make it so that people are, you know, less...
I know what you're... Yeah.
And she wouldn't do it, and she'll never do it. And that kind of stuff, that really bothers me. That's a whole other topic, too, the whole fake news thing, how people will sit there and throw around, you know, like, articles that they only fucking read the headline on. God, I hate that. Then they only ever post pictures of articles or pictures of headlines. They don't actually engage with the material at all. Like, Jesus, fuck.
I know, just these headlines and then criticizing the headlines.
Yeah.
That's really kind of sums up a lot of these skeptic people is that they just engage on such a surface level with a lot of things. So yeah, I saw Blair's video. I'd like to think that she didn't edit any of it, but I don't know. It did seem like way too much of a coincidence, I guess. But I mean, I guess I'll give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, it's just really damaging when they sell these narratives, because if you talk to most people, like, people just are living in fucking fantasy world. Like, what is BLM? BLM, that's a radical, violent organization that's constantly rioting over there. It's like, no, come on. Like, BLM has had thousands of marches, and like a couple of them, like, years ago made the news for having a little bit of fucked up shit going on. But like, overall, like, BLM is a pretty peaceful organization. Like, what is Antifa? You know, Antifa in the United States is nothing. Now, in Europe, in some European countries, Antifa does some crazy shit, but in the US, Antifa is like fucking babby movements, you know? And you know, article after article after article shows extremist right-leaning violence in the United States, and people have an excuse for it. People make up a story for it. You know, like, oh, the guy, I think even Sargon was on board with that one radical dude that drove down somebody in a crowd, was saying something like, well, somebody popped up next to his car and he got scared. Like, dude, did you see the video? The guy is going full on into a crowd. What are you talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, oh my God, Sargon, who said that Heather Heyer, I was in absolute shock. My jaw dropped when I heard him say that on the stream with Millennial Wars.
Oh God, another white nationalist, actual ethno-state white nationalist, white supremacist. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, where he said, well, didn't Heather Heyer like die from being fat? And kind of they giggled about it, and I was like, oh my God. Holy shit. My jaw, I was like, all of these things were like just a tipping point for me. Just seeing all of this, I was like, oh my God, I do not want anything to do with this community anymore.
Yeah.
Quote, community. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What was I going to say? The echo chamber is so strong, man.
Yeah.
People ask me, how did it take you so long to come to these common sense conclusions? The echo chamber is so strong, man. Like, ridiculous. It's the selective, viewing or consideration of different things. Like, for example, non-binary people. I was also at a point where I was like super skeptical of like most non-binary people. It reached a point where I was like super skeptical of non-binary people, and I kind of saw like a lot of non-binary people as what the anti-SJWs have represented them as, right? The worst of the worst. And I actually fell kind of, quote, victim to that echo chamber of like, that is really what non-binary people are like. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the other day I actually went to a meetup with ContraPoint. So ContraPoint is a more kind of lefty.
I know a lot about her. I'm a friend of hers, or I hope to consider myself a friend of hers. Yeah, she's really cool.
She's awesome. And I went to a meetup, and like, I realized that this is like what non-binary people are. They're reasonable. They're not going to like insist that you call them Z and Zer. Like, nobody is that unreasonable. Yeah. Nobody. And I just realized that like non-binary people are like regular, like, they're not like these crazy people that these anti-SJWs make them out to be. Mm-hmm. And so like I fell into that trap of being as ignorant as the rest of them. And I'm trans, and I have non-binary like acquaintances and friends. Mm-hmm. Yet I fell for that. And I fucking, you know.
Well, even Blair White on her channel, I think she still describes like post-op trans people as going through like genital mutilation, like mutilating your penis to create a vagina or whatever. I think she still uses that terminology, doesn't she?
I very, very harshly criticized her about that.
Mm-hmm. Or she'll say, like, you're not a real woman, or you're not a real man, or whatever. I think...
She propagates a lot of transphobic views, and I told her that. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to start shit, because Blair and I have a bit of a past.
Sure.
But somebody tweeted at me and was like, yeah, Blair White is, like, one nuanced argument away from just being another man in a dress to her audience. And I was like... It's kind of true. It's kind of fucking true.
I don't know if I would go as far as to say that. It seems like I've used this term in the past and I've gotten in huge trouble for it. Are you familiar with the concept of like an Uncle
I mean,
Tom?
I don't think that Blair White is a man in a dress.
No, yeah, sure.
I'm just saying that, like, I think a lot of the audience don't necessarily accept trans people. They just accept her.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Are you familiar with the concept of like an Uncle Tom?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so like I feel like there are these, and it's really dismissive, and it sounds mean to say. I mean, I could back it up with examples, though, but like it seems like there are these figures that exist on the right that are literally like the token people that you get to point to make it so that you're not actually like homophobic or racist. So like when you say things like well, you guys are really homophobic, and they go, I'm not homophobic actually. I'm a huge fan of Milo Yiannopoulos, and it's like, okay, what does Milo Yiannopoulos say about gay people? Well, all gay people are lazy. I would never hire a gay person. I'm very Catholic. It's like, okay. Wow, so you've got a gay guy that gives you like all of the negative gay talking points you could ever want. That's really fucking convenient. Same thing with Blair White. Well, we're not transphobic. We've got Blair White. She's awesome. What does Blair White say? You know, like, well, transgender people are mentally disordered and you're still a man even if you're a trans woman, and if you get any kind of surgery, you're mutilating your genitals. Like, wow, okay, that's awesome. You found a speaker who is trans, who fulfills like, who checks off every box of like an anti-trans person. Like, how convenient for you, you know?
Yeah. Just to be charitable, she didn't say that it's mutilation, but she said that trans women like have a wound that resembles.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, a wound.
Which is like
wounded.
that's so fucking offensive.
Yeah,
that's deeply insulting and not even accurate. You know, it's not raw. A wound is usually raw. You know.
Yeah.
I think her point is that there's a lot of scar tissue, but you know.
Well, regardless of what the point is, it sounds like you're playing make-believe. That's like the goal, or that seems to be the context by which most people would interpret it.
Exactly. That's like kind of what is implied. Mm-hmm. And so that's just, yeah. But I told her that, so like, I hope she reconsiders like the fact that she said that.
Yeah, I don't know. I watched her debate with ContraPoints, and it was pretty. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a little bit. Well, like, Contra is, I think, a little bit more comfortable debating. She's kind of taking a break from it for now. Yeah. But I think if she were to debate Blair now, she'd do a lot better. So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought Contra expressed her points clearly. I was just saying, like, a lot of the points that Blair White expresses are pretty transphobic. But
I know.
Yeah.
I know. You know, sometimes. No, I don't want to do the armchair psychology. I just think that a lot of like right-wing trans people, I think they often say, and not necessarily Blair, but I've seen a lot of trans people often say these right-wing things as a way of coping with their gender dysphoria.
Oof.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's an ugly term that they don't like to use, but I've only ever heard it used in terms of women. But like, are you familiar with the term like internalized misogyny?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that thing going on, yeah.
Yeah, and almost like if they just admit that they're just men, they can almost like escape their own dysphoria. Mm-hmm. Which I don't think it really works that way.
Yeah, I mean they make a lot of money doing it, but yeah.
I guess so. But yeah, that's my opinion on that.
Yep. Yeah, was there anything else you wanted to go over or anything, or?
Trying to think. No, not really. I feel like I really spoke about like the things that's been on my mind recently. Yeah, I feel like if Andy ever does like a debate format thing with like Richard Spencer, you should like rather have you on than maybe like. What's that guy with the cat? Logan
Paul?
No, not Logan Paul.
Wait.
No, you know the stream with Andy Warski had with like Richard Spencer? Uh-huh. There was a guy with a cat. Anyway, my point is he should have you on to debate them instead, because I feel like you would do a better job, and that would be a lot more.
Me and Andy had a huge falling out, so that's not not going to happen anymore.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know about that drama.
Well.
Okay. I probably have to go. I have to give my fiance a call, but thank you so much for having me on and for chatting with me.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Good luck on your journey. Just don't be a reactionary. You mentioned that earlier. Don't be a reactionary. That's like the most important thing. If you see somebody doing something stupid, don't just do the opposite.
Yeah, 100%. No, in my case, it's just like I wouldn't even necessarily I wouldn't call myself a leftist at this point. I wouldn't call myself a right winger. I'm just trying to figure things out, and I really haven't. I don't feel like I've changed my opinions that much at all. I've changed how
become more nuanced.
And I've changed how I do online politics and online discourse. That doesn't mean that my substantive opinions have changed that much. So yeah.
Good luck.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the conversation, buddy. Good luck.
Yeah. Bye.
All right, boys.